Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating approach to cognitive aging called the iCARE program. It's this innovative caregiver-driven training protocol specifically designed to tackle dementia. If you've ever wondered how we might literally rewire the brain by bringing neuroscience straight into the family living room, well, you are in the exact right place. Let's get right into it. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The dementia treatment gap, 2. Rewiring the brain, 3. Step-by-step program development, 4. Caregivers as co-therapists, 5. Tracking progress and burden, and 6. A sustainable path forward. Starting with Section 1. The dementia treatment gap, the massive shortage of accessible care in India. 90%. Let that sink in for a second. According to the data, there is a staggering dementia treatment gap of nearly 90% in India. That literally means only 1 in 10 people with dementia is actually receiving a diagnosis, treatment, or care. Access is so often blocked by these everyday practical hurdles, right? Things like a lack of transport, living too far from treatment centers, mobility issues, and just a general dependency on clinics. So this brings us to a massive, absolutely crucial question. How do we make dementia care culturally relevant and actually accessible? In collectivistic societies like India, the family is the integral unit of support, especially for illness-related care. And the iCARE program, it was designed specifically to leverage this innate strength of the family structure. By shifting the delivery of care out of the clinic and directly into the home, we totally bypass those huge logistical hurdles we just talked about. Moving on to Section 2, Rewiring the Brain, the Neuroscience of Cognitive Training. You've probably heard that famous neuroscience rule, cells that fire together, wire together, right? This is the Hebbian principle, and it is the absolute engine driving this program. See, Alzheimer's selectively damages the brain's default mode network, which is essentially your brain's baseline connectivity system. So the neurological goal of this training is to use very specific tasks to force different parts of that network to activate at the exact same time. By doing this over and over, the brain physically strengthens its resting state functional connectivity, driving real adaptive neuroplastic change. Now, when developing cognitive training, researchers usually pick one of 2 paths. The bottom-up approach is restorative. It focuses on practicing basic perceptual and cognitive skills through repetitive drills, just trying to foster connections in damaged areas. On the flip side, the top-down approach is compensatory. That one targets higher-order executive functions and attentional control circuits, which are basically run by the prefrontal cortex. But what makes iCARE such a game-changer is that it uses a blended approach. It integrates both bottom-up and top-down cognitive stimulation techniques at the exact same time, heavily loading the frontal parietal and central executive networks to really maximize that plasticity. Okay, Section 3, Step-by-step program development. From literature to pilot testing. To build this intervention into a proper clinical tool using medical research council guidelines, the researchers went through 6 highly systematic phases. First up, a massive literature review on cognitive training. Second, item generation, where they actually created these home-based tasks rooted in neuroplasticity. Third, expert reading. 5 experienced clinical psychologists review the tasks to validate the content and difficulty. Fourth, a field trial with 3 participants just to test the waters. Fifth, modification based on that real-world feedback. And finally, phase 6 was pilot testing, where the refined module was given to 10 patient caregiver dyads over 5 weeks to finalize everything for the main feasibility evaluation. In taking a look at this, it brilliantly illustrates exactly how those generated items map directly onto the physical brain. If you check out the column on the left, we've got attention, executive function, memory, and language. You can see how specific tasks, things like handling money, looking at maps, or visual scanning, are tied directly to neural substrates. For instance, the executive function tasks intentionally target the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It's not just about keeping the patient busy. This is targeted, structured neural stimulation. Section 4. Caregivers as co-therapists, empowering families in clinical care. Now, this is where we shift the whole narrative from clinical dependency to true family empowerment. If you look closely at the arrows in this reciprocal triangle, it's pretty revealing. In a traditional model, the care just flows from the clinician straight to the patient. But here, the neuropsychologist trains the caregiver, then the caregiver actively administers the modules to the patient and feeds that direct feedback right back to the clinician. The caregiver completely transforms from a burdened observer into a vital, supportive co-therapist. But making this work requires some serious commitment. The caregivers aren't just handing out a pill. They are actively running these specific 45-minute daily modules at home at least 5 days a week for a total of 25 sessions. They use these beautifully simple, culturally relevant flipbooks that have 5 levels of graded difficulty. And because it's a home-based flipbook, it really minimizes any language or educational demands, which makes the whole training incredibly accessible. Section 5. Tracking progress and burden. Measuring success for both patient and caregiver. A great idea is nothing without the data to back it up, right? And I know this looks like a massive alphabet soup of clinical acronyms, but understanding the balance here is super important. On the left, we've got the tools tracking the patient's cognitive decline and daily functioning. That's the NIMHANS battery, the Hindi mental status exam, and the everyday ability scale. But just as crucially, on the right, we measured the caregiver's well-being. Because, let's face it, asking family to act as co-therapists could definitely add stress. So the protocol rigorously tracks caregiver burden using the Zarit Burden Interview, along with the PHQ-9 for depression and the GAD-7 for anxiety. And they track all of this meticulously. Notice how these extensive assessments are scheduled throughout the Spirit protocol diagram. They test everyone right at baseline to get a clear starting point. Then, they assess them again at the end of the 5-week intervention. Finally, they do a 1-month follow-up. That's to measure if there's any lasting impact or real transfer of those cognitive gains once the intensive daily training has actually paused. Section 6. A sustainable path forward, creating a scalable model for dementia care. So, we've seen the science and the structure, but let's look at the real-world impact. The absolute genius of the iCARE program is its potential for scalability. By proving this feasibility protocol, the model can scale so affordably using a training of trainer snowball effect. Basically, neuropsychologists can train a diverse group of clinicians, professional caregivers, or even community volunteers. Then, those people go out and train family members directly in their homes. It dramatically reduces the economic burden and that heavy reliance on constant hospital visits. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative thought. What is the future of family-driven healthcare for cognitive aging? If we can empower families with the actual tools of neuroscience, if we can turn everyday homes into hubs of neuroplastic rehabilitation, we could fundamentally reshape global dementia care, making it accessible, affordable, and culturally deeply resonant. Think about how that could change the lives of the 90% who are currently stuck in that treatment gap. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I will see you next time.